everybody could join us. It's interesting is that I typically don't have to present my screen, so I can't see who's coming in. I would greet you if I could. So WebEx doesn't allow the presenter to have the option to see who they're speaking to, which we might need to change or ask them to change it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Deanne, if you could hit record, and I can't see if you're recording, so maybe let me know.
Good.
We're good. All righty. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Lander, Director of Pavement Management with WithersRavenel, and we'd like to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn. And it's on a neighborhood approach to pavement management. It just makes sense. All right, so I hope everybody's staying safe in the wet. Well, in North Carolina, it's wet weather. I don't know what's going on in other places, but our intent for our Lunch and Learn is to introduce you to new products, practices, basically broaden your horizon, so to speak, in pavement management. Any of the treatments that we recommend. We recommend that you do a pilot on things, but today we're talking about a practice in Cary, North Carolina, and so if anybody needs PDHs, we're going to be putting a link in the chat, and you can click on that link and fill out the form, and when we're done, you'll get a PDH in probably about a week, and the Lunch and Learns are recorded. So if for whatever reason that you have to leave or you want to, you can watch it later and get PDHs, but you can also provide the link to somebody who wanted to attend but wants to see it later on. So we can get you that link. And also too is that we can get you a PDF version of our presentation. So the format of today's Lunch and Learn is that Amir and I are going to be presenting for about 40 to 45 minutes. And just as a disclaimer, that we presented this once in Roanoke, Virginia, in person. So this is the first time we're doing this online. So there may be some hiccups. That's the disclaimer, right? So anyway, everybody's muted, but you can ask questions in the chat, and we hope that you do ask some questions. Deanne and Matthew will help us with those questions, so we'll be able to get them answered. And if we don't get them answered now, we can talk to you later. We can do it through email. So introductions, I'm going to let Amir introduce himself, and then I'll introduce myself and kick this thing off.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Steve. My name is Amir Nazarati, Senior Project Manager here with the town of Cary. It's been 9 years now that I've been here. Part of our role, I'm in the transportation department too. So part of what I do is been managing our our pavement management, our street improvements program for about 7-8 years now. So not the whole time I've been here, but for most of it. But we're also working on road widening projects, sidewalk projects, intersection improvements. But I'm happy to be here and talk about kind of some of the evolutions of our program, our maintenance program, but also kind of sticking out into the future, what we are looking to do moving forward.
Excellent. All righty. Like I said, I'm Steve Lander, Director of Pavement Management, and I always find it interesting of how careers evolve. I started my career as a transportation engineer, so for 10 years, I laid out roads and drainage and that sort of thing. And at one point, I guess I got hit over the head by a paving contractor, and I worked for Ruston Paving out of Durham here, and for about 3.5 years, and got my feet wet in pavement management and really liked it. And came back and started helping municipal clients manage their roadway networks with pavement condition surveys, life cycle modeling. And then also too, just recently, WithersRavenel, having been here 4 years, is being able to include the other utilities, the water, sewer, and stormwater, in helping manage the plan. interesting is this graphic right here is something that Rob Holland, who I hope he's on the call because I'll be calling him out a little bit here. But when we started 4 years ago, this was something that we thought about, and it started on the dry erase board. And this was in week one at WithersRavenel. We both got hired at the same time, and so thank goodness for a marketing department that can really put together decent graphics because I'm an engineer. Rob's a geologist, so we're not really good at this stuff, putting things together. So what you see here are the components that Rob and I determined were uh, what needs to happen for a successful pavement management program and also to ultimately an asset management program. So I'm just going to quickly go through these things. You know, just like anything, we always need a plan, right? So like, what do we want to be when we grow up? And you have to set these things up. And so what is it that we want the roadway network, our asset network to look like? You know, so that'll determine what kind of survey we're going to do, what kind of information we need to collect to be able to help to reach our goals, to reach the vision. Do we need life cycle modeling to tell the story? And I always go back to an old boss of mine would say, do you know or are you guessing when it comes to managing a network? How much money does it take? What kind of treatments do we need? Which leads to the next, what treatments do you use and which are acceptable? And they might be acceptable in one area. And as we find in Cary, uh, microsurfacing and those thin lift treatments are not quite yet accepted. We're working on it, right, Amir? As time goes on. But those are things that you have to figure out what works for your community, and then being able to take that information from the PCS through the life cycle modeling and develop concise bid documents. Can't overemphasize having construction inspection for the duration of the project, because it really you got to make sure things are being done right, and that there's no disconnects between what you expect and what actually happens in the field. Monitoring what we do is so important. So when we choose a different type of treatment, how long does it last? It comes down to dollars per square yard year. That's what we're looking for. We want to try to manage the network at the highest level of service for the least cost. And if you don't keep a construction history of things, we'll never know how things perform. And then what got Rob and I's attention with the other assets. And it's really to have a successful program, we got to make sure that the utilities are being fixed first, and then we do our roadway work. And funding, you know, we're a real champion in finding grants and low interest rate loans for our clients, but not so much in pavement. It's more for the water, sewer, and stormwater. So that is the circle of success and what we subscribe to here and help our clients achieve. And so for today's presentation, we're going to be talking about the Cary's pavement management program, and we're going to go into some background, some past practices, and then what happened, and then what changed. And we're going to talk about some current practices, and then we're going to go talk about life cycle modeling, which actually is kind of late to the game because Cary has a very extensive pavement management program, and it's only within the last year that we brought life cycle modeling in to be able to help tell the story. And maybe later on we can convince council to use other types of treatments because of their cost effectiveness, and that's the type of thing we need life cycle modeling for, to tell the story, to get the right amount of funding, and to determine the treatments that we're going to use. So I'm going to turn it over to Amir.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Steve. So just a little quick background on Cary. Look, Wake County, within the triangle, kind of between Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. You can go to the next part, Steve. We started, we used to be a community where folks would travel to like RTP or other cities within Wake County or other surrounding areas to work, but now actually more people either stay in Cary or come to Cary to work than leave. So that's really been a shift that's kind of caused us to focus a lot on our maintenance activities. So streets, sidewalks, our infrastructure, but also buildings and facades and things like that. Um, and also, we wanted to put on there kind of last 5 years or so of our power bill miles that we do maintain or center line. So up to actually, I looked up before coming on in for 2014 or 2024. Sorry, we had 518 miles. So we gained 4 miles since last year. Um, so we're kind of Steve. What's that like? Middle size, kind of middle size as far as mileage goes.
Yeah, it's a good sized network, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot to tell. Yeah, and see how you popped up to 55 miles. So
Yeah,
in
sleepy
1970.
little bedroom community, right? Back in
Yeah, yeah,
'74.
yeah. Yeah. So 50 years ago. So it's grown quite a bit. Okay, yeah. So this next slide here, Steve mentioned we presented this before. It is a little different audience, so folks on this call may be familiar with kind of the street maintenance responsibility thing. So um, last year, you can see we have a breakdown of our mileage: 514, 160 miles of NCDOT roads, and then we have 100, almost 120 miles of private streets. That's the pink color. Yeah. Um, I did use this kind of snapshot to show we have some private streets within a park there, like the Green Bond Metro Park. It's a town of Curry facility. So those are not streets that are maintained by an HOA or anything like that. They're actually maintained by Cary, but within a park system. So they wouldn't be included on our PAL bill or anything like that. One of the things I wanted to bring up while I had the opportunity for everyone is that we are working on a program to accept residential private streets. Again, those may be maintained by an HOA into our basically making them public into our street maintenance system. We're kind of working with 3 or 4 communities as part of like a pilot project. But if anyone has if their community or town or city has a program to do that, I'd be really interested in talking about that process with you all. So if anyone has any experience with that, like I said, accepting residential private streets into your system, that'd be great. We have our contact info at the end. If anyone wants to reach out, that'd be awesome.
Next. You good?
Yeah, good. Yep. Yeah. So one the show our PCR pavement condition rating trend. Uh, we have data from pretty far back, so to 2009 there. And I guess the main thing on this side was the consistency. Uh, we've been um, we've been lucky and been able to show our council the importance of our street maintenance and our program, for a while, obviously now. So we've been lucky to be funded for this time for around we have around 500 miles. We kind of usually get around now it's 7-8 million a year. So it includes to maintain our streets, to maintain our program. So that includes construction, but the engineering that goes along with it. Um, but we've been blessed and lucky, but also I guess we've done work to show the importance of our program.
Yeah,
We'll get into that a little bit too.
yeah, one of the things and why the PCR score is like it is that council buys into the fact that they want their roads to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And there's really no right or wrong answer. It's based on what folks want, but all stakeholders are involved with this, and it costs a certain amount of money to keep it at a desired level of service. And so, what is the level of service, and then how much is it going to cost to get us and keep us there?
Yeah, that sort of conversation is definitely as part of like some of that life cycle modeling that we'll talk about later.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so let's talk about some of the things we've done in the past. You can run through them, Steve. You can just show them all since you. Um, Hey, we were in person. I could control it, then you could, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um, so I guess we still do annual PCS pavement condition surveys for now. Um, you can keep going. So they're windshield surveys. Um, so we're getting ratings for all of our streets annually, which is nice to have all that data. Kind of the biggest thing as far as this presentation goes, we were using a shotgun kind of worst first approach, where we basically take the list of streets and start at the bottom, like the lowest rated one, and move our way up until we ran out of our money. I guess I should have probably clarified when we do the survey, our segments are broken up basically from intersection to intersection. So you kind of see there on the map there, all the red are segments that we'd be doing some sort of maintenance to that year. So you can kind of see kind of disjointed. Maybe we're doing a segment here, a segment there. Um, we weren't really looking at the whole street as a whole. We were basically taking the worst segments and getting those done. And we'll talk more about that too. I guess it was one of the things we were saying is that we were going into a neighborhood year after year. That was definitely a complaint we heard from residents, um, where they notice us in one year, that would be in there the next, and then we maybe in a future year too. I think there was a neighborhood we went in 3 years in a row. That was one of the ones we really highlighted. I was like, yeah, this may not be the best approach. Um, in the past, we were doing our bid documents and our construction inspection internally, um, which was great. But as the town has grown, we've it's been harder to do that internally. So we were actually I have a story of that. When I was an intern here in Cary when I was at NC State, and part of what I did was draw the maps for where we'd be maintaining and repaving. So that was a while ago now. um, so yeah, we just things are growing. There's a lot more going on. So we've kind of leveraged some efficiencies, you could say, I guess, with the external bid documents and CEI construction inspection. And then also we were doing a chip seal and overlay, um, which we found didn't really give us the service life that we had hoped for or anticipated. So now we are running a full mill and fill operation for our street repaving, and it really wasn't saving us any money because the streets would just degrade faster. So yeah, Steve, you want to geek
So,
out now? That's what you're.
yeah, so I'm gonna geek out on everybody here. So this is what I do when I'm watching TV. Like I'm watching Abbott Elementary or Elementary. I'm watching some show on TV, and just so you know that this is drawn to scale in PowerPoint. So that just tells you what a geek that I am, a pavement geek, and drawing these things and This took a long time. So anyway, so I'm just trying to show what does it look like when distresses are introduced to a pavement structure, and but what the city or the town was doing is when they got to a place where rehabilitation was required, they were putting a chip seal down on top of all of these distresses, whether they be structural or environmental, and then they were putting in a 1 inch asphalt overlay. And so what was happening in about 6 years, those cracks were coming right through the crack seal and through the asphalt. I mean, the full crack pattern was back. So obviously not a desirable outcome, and we see it too often. And so it was something that the Cary did not want to perpetuate. Oh, somehow you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So as there's some outcomes or consequences of kind of what we were doing before, which we recognize, and we wanted to create a different program to address some of those concerns. So I mentioned before the asphalt overlays were not performing well. We were kind of seeing like 6, 7, 8 years service life, poor cracks were reflecting through the overlays and whatnot. We were receiving citizen complaints again, like I mentioned before. We were in a neighborhood year after year. We were hearing things like, the street that's just around the corner looks exactly the same as this one, and you're not maintaining that one over there. So why not? Or why are you maintaining this one versus the other one? They look the same. So residents are not going to understand the a 63 versus a 69 rating or something like that. So we were receiving questions and having to respond to things like that. We were also getting a lot of feedback from our contractors that we were hiring that kind of say they'd have to jump around. There's a lot of mobilizations involved with that. They're giving us higher unit prices to address those, that risk and that work they had to do. They're getting, so doing all those little small segments also gave them, they weren't able to reach their production rates that they were kind of looking for, again costing us more. And then the last one there is really important. It was hard to collaborate with internal and external stakeholders. So internally, we've been able to collaborate with like our traffic calming programs, like new speed humps, or pedestrian improvements to mid-block crossings, our stormwater department, adding new drainage structures here or there, kind of fixing some drainage concerns they've gotten. And then externally, the biggest one we had to deal with is Google Fiber. So if we're jumping all around the town, going to all these different small segments, it was just really hard to collaborate with those folks. So going to a neighborhood approach that we'll get into, we're really focused on a neighborhood, doing a lot of streets in there. We'll physically be there for longer than we were doing the worst first approach. But the goal is not to be back in there for another 10 years or so. So, next slide. Basically, kind of as we've been talking about, we were able to. I mean, this was a while back, kind of when I first started, and kind of even before. We were able to show council, those past practices, and I'll say that I like to say it was kind of like a brute force method where we were kind of doing analysis, by hand or like with Excel spreadsheets, and not able to look at the whole network, but kind of focusing on little areas, just because we didn't have the tools to really do that. So, and again, that goes into our evolution of looking at life cycle modeling, for years to come, kind of what Steve was talking about earlier. You want to show that picture there, Steve? Yeah. So council buying, showing them pictures like this, which is not, this is not exactly a picture and carry.
Yeah.
Steve, I think you took this one.
Yeah. You were like, Steve, that's not one of our streets, right? Brand new pavement that's got a crack coming through. This is in my neighborhood, which I walk, and they did chip seal and overlay, so I'm walking it and I'm documenting.
And that
It's
was
a
like
DOT
very
street.
soon after it was done, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's like less than a year.
Yeah. We can go next slide. So now kind of getting into what we do now. Our street maintenance program is broken up into 3 phases. So we have the pavement condition survey and street selection process. That's kind of, if you're looking at a calendar year, that's kind of like in the spring, where we're writing a windshield survey for now. I guess that's could be another evolution in the future that we're looking into, is kind of some automated data collection. But for now, it's a windshield survey, getting ratings for our streets, which is really the foundation of our program there. Phase 2, kind of through the summer and fall, is getting our bid documents set up, and then through the next summer after that, you're getting into construction. As I like to say too, talk about it earlier, there's always something going on. So if we're working on the construction of the current year, we're looking at next year's. Or at the same time, we're looking at next year's plan. So I mean, it's pretty intensive. There's always things going on. We're always looking ahead. We're also working in the currently, but also kind of looking at behind and kind of analyzing what did well, what's performed well, what hasn't. So
I know Rob will bring up these like, yeah, we're talking about projects way in the past and in the future, so it's
yeah, yeah,
wide open. All right, so I'm going to talk about the pavement condition survey. So, interesting, Amir, you bring up, visual survey versus automated data collection versus AI, and we're looking at those options as well as a company to be able to provide those services. And folks ask me, why would you go one with another? And I'll just say this is you got to collect the data that you need to make the decisions that support your goals, right? And so in Carrie's instance, they've been using the ITRI rating methodology for since the beginning of time. And so whenever you switch, when you go from visual to automated and you're using a different rating methodology, you always run that chance of not being able to compare the data to the last survey. So your data just doesn't quite line up. But when you're using the same from year or, when successive pavement condition surveys, you have a better chance of comparing that data and how things are performing. So if what you're using is working, it's a good idea to stick with it unless you get to a number of mileage that really just makes sense to have automated data collection done. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll show you our process for collecting visual survey. It's a pavement condition survey. Ideally, should be collected every 2 to 3 years, and Carrie does it every year, and there's a reason for that. It's been done that way for years, but also it's a snapshot of their entire network. And while we're doing the survey, if we see any potholes, we're calling them in, we're getting them fixed. So it's a snapshot every year of the entire network. And that things perform differently and some things deteriorate a lot quicker. So we have a lot of data to be able to generate the curves for the modeling. It's an unbiased perspective. So Rob's not rating the roads. He does live on one of the roads that did get paved, but it didn't get paved because Rob lives on the road. So, anyway, we're rating it based on what we see in the field, and I'll show you a little example in just a bit. It's a good idea if a number of miles, 500 miles. I'd say when you have 50 miles or more, it's tougher not to use the software analysis to make decisions from. When you're lower than that, it's you can probably do it with a spreadsheet, and then we're generating a report at the end. So we got Mr. Holland rating the roads. I don't know if he's in Cary, but like I said, Cary's been using the ITRI rating methodology, which was developed by NC State and in ITRI back in '83. And so it's a windshield survey. We collect additional attributes, and like I said, the snapshot every year is why they do it every year. And they might, Amir, you might decide at some point maybe go to every 2 years, every 3 years. The upper limit though is really, is 4 years, and the reason that we, 2 to 3 years is the recommended window. First of all, when you're spending all that money, you really want to see the condition of your network and seeing if things are performing. Do we need more money? Are curves accurately determining where the PCR is? And then also too is that after about 3 years, if you're doing preservation, that list won't be as helpful in year 3 or year 4. And so needing a survey is paramount to doing preservation work. So this is a snapshot and video of the ArcMap application that we use in Cary while we're rating the roads. And you can see as we're selecting a segment, we see the prior PCR score. And the key here is that the current PCR is changing as we change the distresses. So both people who are rating have to agree on the distresses they see, and also too is like a gut check. Is this road really a 62? Is it a 57? You know, when we're looking at it, when we get done, we see the final PCR score, and does it match what we thought it was when we first get to that segment? So that's that's something I'm really proud of, that we were able to develop, and making sure that we have the PCR score that truly matches what we think it should be.
Yeah, Steve, I think you all maybe developed something like that because Rob and I were talking, and we were kind of noticing like, hey, this really, this went down a lot, or maybe some went up, and that feature there has made it a lot easier to QA, QC, QA the data, um,
Hey,
without having to go back,
hey, you
to
you
all these
froze for
streets.
us.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Am I good now?
yeah. You're good now. You froze for a little bit.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was just saying that I think you all may have made that feature there of the kind of um, real time adjustments, because we were, it's made it a lot easier for QA QC, because we, talking to Rob, we were noticing streets that like have gone down, like, they were degraded a lot, or even some that were showing them being better, which can happen if there's some patch done by our Public Works department or something. And it's been really, it's made it a lot easier, I'll say, to quality control the data. Um,
Hey, hey. One thing, if I could add here, Amir, is that a pavement condition survey, it's not perfect, right?
yeah,
You're never going to get, if you're getting 90% plus accuracy from your pavement condition survey, you're doing pretty good. And it's at a network level.
yeah, I was gonna say that.
So, right, so we make decisions in the field based on the project, right? And
Yeah,
grouping of projects and that sort of thing. So it gets us close. And that's what, and with the different types of data collection methodologies, eventually the AI is going to be, there will be used for pavement condition surveys. Right now it's not there, but it's going to happen.
yeah,
What's the right level of data for the cost is really what we're shooting for.
sure.
But anyway, you get me
Yeah,
started.
that's kind of a good transition in the second phase, because
Yeah.
this is the project level survey. So taking the data, getting our streets selected, and then uh, going back to those specific segments and streets, and highlighting, on a street level, what needs to be done, what needs to be maintained. Is there patching? Are there manholes? Are there water valves that need to be adjusted? Are there curb and gutter that needs to be repaired? The curb ramps. I mean, they're fairly detailed. I think. Yeah, well, so before I came here, I worked at the NCDOT, and it seems like now they're getting a bit better about like showing curb ramps and things like that. But basically, it was a line on a map that said, repave this street from here to here, and I think it's still kind of like that. And there's obviously quantities associated with it, but it didn't kind of give you any rough area, um, of where those quantities should be used. Um, so yeah, I mean, our plans here show all those features which we found helpful. Um,
Hey,
it
Amir,
kind of says, yeah,
I was going to mention that one of the things, so like if we weren't paving this with another sheet, and typically we're going to come into the radiuses, and we're going to finish that road
oh,
off to that
yeah,
point.
yes,
The contractors, they want to just pave straight through because that's where their production is. They
yeah,
don't want to do these little curb returns. And if a contractor came back and says, well, when I bid this thing, I had no idea that I was going to be doing those curb returns, and you say, and so there it is on the map. And
yeah,
minimizing change orders is a good thing.
yeah, yeah. Definitely true. I think the big thing with having these kind of plans here has been it's to help with our coordination. We still do have a map which we're kind of using in JS that shows like the line from here to here will be working, but being able to share these kind of more detailed plans with like our Public Works department internally, our like Google Fiber, has helped that collaboration. Yeah, so we're moving over to construction. Obviously, I think this is my favorite part. But we as part of our program, we're, like I said earlier, we're maintaining curb and gutter. Um, it's our street maintenance program is really the biggest way that we are upgrading our sidewalk facilities to be ADA compliant. So upgrading curb ramps, basically, right? Redoing crossings. Um, as part of our ADA transition plan. It's mentioned pretty prominently within that. So we're doing like over 100. We're upgrading, either removing, replacing, or retrofitting over 100 ramps a year. Obviously, that kind of depends on if there's existing sidewalk in the neighborhood or not, but a lot of them do. A lot of them have sidewalks, so we're doing a lot of curb ramps. Um, talking about mill and pave, we also have a patching program that's involved as far as our street maintenance program. So we're highlighting patches that need to be done. So patching basically where a street is in generally good condition, but there may be an isolated spot, a pothole a pothole doesn't be addressed immediately. Some severe alligator cracking or tree root encroachment, things like that. And also, I wanted to highlight the top left picture there is our rejuvenator. We've been using rejuvenator maybe 7 years or so now, which we've had a lot of success with, and we like. Basically, I kind of say like putting lotion on your skin, preventative maintenance technique that we've been using. I'm sure Steve could tell you all about it later. Or there's another lecture.
Yeah, we could spend a lot of time on that one.
I just want to highlight that we also are focusing on some preventative maintenance techniques.
Yep. Yep. And then the emergency FDRs, Turner gets their free advertisement here.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
We've had to do that a handful of times over the years too.
Yep.
We
Yep.
have
You lose
Yeah,
a truck or right.
Yeah. Yep.
All righty. So so we talked about the past practices. Now this is the current practices after council bought in to that we need to do things the right way. So here we are. We're with our section again, and as time goes on, we get these distresses, and at some point we're going to need rehabilitation. And Rob and I, we over the years we've looked over this, and we always come back to it's about year 17 that you're at a PCR or a PCI score of about a 65, and we keep coming back to it. So anyway, it's an interesting number, but then the whole idea is we're trying to push that out. So we get to this place where we have all these distresses, and now instead of putting a coating on top, which a chip seal and an overlay, and you can only do that so much. We can only overlay so much before at some point we're going to have to mill it out. We're creating a bad situation for future generations by overlaying. At some point, it has to be removed. So might as well remove it now. So carries in the practice of doing a full depth mill, replacing any of the base that might have failed. And we're hoping, that we've protected the base. So you're only doing a few areas that have base failure. You're replacing curb and gutter, and you're doing any utility adjustments, and you're putting in curb ramps. You're doing retrofits or putting ramps in, and then we're going back with the full depth asphalt.
Okay, yeah. So now we want to get into our neighborhood approach, because so this is basically leading up to a different way to select our streets, moving away from that worst first approach. We kind of realized there were be some benefits to having a tighter group, working more in a neighborhood level when we're going into an area to repave. So as first part of that was developing our groups. I remember this was a while back, but we were literally in a room with a big map of carrying, kind of drawing out neighborhoods and kind of phases of a neighborhood and where kind of things naturally looked, especially around like our thoroughfares as kind of borders as well, like what's shown here. If you want to go to the next page, there's more of that. Next slide. So I was over the 180 around 180 paving groups. I think there's a little bit. There's a couple more now. These are kind of the criteria we were looking at when we first started. So looking around a group that costs around 500,000 to maintain. Understand that in for the first when we first started this, we're not going to be repaving every single street in there. That may be the goal, 20 years from now. But for right now, we're trying to catch up that worst first. The goal is getting all the groups, all the streets, I'm sorry, segments within the group kind of at a similar condition. So they're kind of degrading at the same rate. So getting to 10, 20 years down the road, we can repave pretty much every single street in a neighborhood or in a group. I guess I will say that we've kind of realized one of the lessons learned, especially this year, is that we realized that some of our groups may have been too large. So maybe that 500,000 was a little much. We're kind of taking a second pass to see if we can break down the groups a little bit smaller, especially as costs have risen. That's been the main kind of factor in that. As costs have increased, we were getting into a scenario where we may only do like one or two, or well, not one, but maybe two to four groups a year, which we still had some desire to spread the work around Cary somewhat. Maybe as much as not politically, but it's kind of into that. But as much as maybe we don't want to, we still needed to spread it around some. So we're getting to where groups were getting too large. So that's one of the lessons that we're working at through now.
Mir, I think that's what a lot of folks manage. The balancing act where you want to do as big a group as possible, but then you're spending the money in one area, and then people on the other side are complaining. And so, how do you making the group size effective enough, but being able to spread the money out over the entire network so folks are getting the same amount of love?
Right. Yeah. Like I said, that kind of changed. That worked for 5-6 years, but like I said, as costs have gone up, it costs more to do a group, right? So,
and they have gone up significantly in the last 3 years. It's astronomical.
Yeah. So once we have the groups, we have the groups, we have the payment condition survey. We're getting into street selection. So it's basically we call them driver streets, but getting the worst PCR segments. So we still have a little bit of worst first in there too. Then getting once we get the worst street, we're kind of looking at what's around it, right? What's in that group? Well, what's in that group? Streets rated poor or very poor from the entry method. So that's where we started, like the 66 there. Recently, past 2-3 years, we've upped that a little bit to catch some of the stragglers. We're kind of calling them gap streets, where there's a fair street rated in between two poorly rated streets. We weren't doing that middle one, so we're still getting some of those same concerns that we're like, hey, we're not getting everything in here. So we've been a little more flexible on selecting streets. I guess it also goes into like the logistics, kind of what I was talking about, while we're there, getting more done. And the construction type, thinking about what repairs are actually needed within those segments.
And this is just showing you a snapshot of what it looks like in the software that I'm going to be talking about here in a few minutes of a paving group with all the PCI scores for each of the segment. And the next slide just shows you the types of treatments and how they're being selected within the software.
Oh, Steve, I got a question actually. I think
Okay.
it was to me. But I can talk about it. So, the question is from Derek Mason. When you were performing the shotgun approach, did you see an increase in your overall PCI or PCS score? That's a good question. We have noticed in the past to 4 years or so, which I don't, I'm not shy about talking about, that our weighted average has gone down a little bit. It's still good. It's still in the good category, but it has gone down. Which we talked about actually when we were developing this plan. That hey, we're not getting a lot of the worst ones. Um, that is gonna cause it to go. We're getting more of the kind of middle. They're still rated poor, but not just not very very poor. Well, we're monitoring that, but we feel like and we've been able to show that the benefits of what we're doing, providing a better service to our residents, it's been more valuable than the kind of small decrease in the overall rating.
Hey,
So
so
we did notice it, but
So Amir, so we are selecting one of the worst street, a paving group with the worst segment, but it was a segment that was going to have to be mill and overlaid anyway. So it's not what it's like you are selecting the worst segment within there, but you're doing the other segments as well, which you were going to have to do anyway. So in a way, you're actually taking care of some of your worst segments, but you're also selecting a group that was going to have to be paved, mill and overlaid anyway. So it's
yeah,
so you're actually and you're doing when you're fixing those streets, then you're actually putting rejuvenator on it. So you're not doing a worse first approach. It's like somewhat that way, but it's there is a fine line. Whenever you run software, it does not want to select those worst streets because you're spending a lot of money in a small area. But
yeah, yeah.
but politically, you really have to take care of those streets. There's some threshold that you have to, otherwise people will complain.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's definitely something we're monitoring. I think at a like a network level, like the overall rating is definitely a network level thing. You know, a couple of points here or there, people don't really notice. But yeah, if things start degrading really quickly, um, people will notice. But those people also notice when you repave, like this slide here. Uh, in years past, we may have just repaved the worst segment in there, like so in 2020. But in our neighborhood approach, we're repaving all those streets in red or maintains and
These guys must have
coverage good.
complained, like everybody else. Everybody
Yeah,
else got
that was
something.
back at 10 years ago, maybe, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so we were able to go in there and repave all those streets, which uh, I think people noticed that more than like okay, our overall went down a little bit, and I think our council again, as we talked about earlier, kind of recognized that. We've been able to show that. Oh, so here's some of the benefits we've realized already. So, uh, again, kind of counteracting or being able to answer some of those questions like, hey, our overall is going down, or we're working in less areas. But these are some of the things we could point to about the approach. So, efficiency for our contractors. I would say that also leads to efficiencies for us, to our partners. Um, like WithersRavenel and some other folks. It's increased efficiency for everyone. Improves the aesthetics for the community. So again, not going in and doing one little segment, but getting a lot of streets done. Better customer service, better collaboration, and ensuring ADA compliance. Basically, everything I mentioned before is better. All the negatives are positive
Nice.
now.
Yeah.
But we have been able to do a lot of it. Has The collaboration piece has been really nice. We've been able to, um, like I said, we've been able to do a lot more, especially like pedestrian improvements, like kind of upgrading mid block crossings to have LED signs, or kind of pedestrian refuges. Um, Recently, we basically did a whole ADA redo of a traffic circle in one of the neighborhoods that we were repaving. So that collaboration piece has been really really nice. I guess actually part of that, we've had some projects where like our traffic calming group may put out a small speed hump or something contract, but no one will bid on it because it's too small. But if they can include it in our project, we're gonna get at least one bidder, um, and we're able to get their work done. Um, well, they don't even have bidders sometimes because it's just so small, no one's interested in it. So
And last but not least is the life cycle modeling, which just came online within the last year. And so I'm going to attempt at a live demo of the Power BI. But in setting up the pavement management system, we looked at the maintenance activities, we put in current unit costs and what kind of improvement that each of these maintenance activities gets. The deterioration curve, which you see on the right, was developed from Cary streets. And I have to add that when Rob and I were out setting the curve and we'd look, we knew how old the street was, and we would, we knew when it was paved. Some of the ones that had the rejuvenator put on there, you could tell that it actually extended it out. It's no lie that it was like it added years onto the deterioration curve. And then we were able to put the paving groups within the model. All right, so this is where I'm going to jump in and I'm going to attempt to go live. So we use a pavement management software that generates all of the scenarios. So that's kind of the engine to this dashboard, and it's from that engine that where all the what ifs that take place, and it runs thousands of calculations. Comparing the different maintenance activities, the benefit, and when things are jumping categories, and it proportions the projects. It's something very difficult to do when you have thousands of segments in your network. So what we're looking at here is a dashboard. This is Power BI. Most municipalities have an Office 365. It might be included with your subscription. But what we're looking at here is the Town of Cary's Power BI dashboard. And what you'll notice here, to me, this is really exciting because we're able to demonstrate the consequences of different funding and different types of treatments right here with a few tabs that's really easy to operate. So we're looking at the current budget. We can break this down. So we're looking at the entire network. We can break this down. We can look at how does it affect the high volume streets, and it looks like it's going a little slow now, but there you go. There is the high volume streets. We can look at how that budget amount affects the low volume streets, and we can look at it at a scenario by scenario basis. So this is the goal of reaching an 81. This is 12.5 million per year, and this is the current, which is about $8.2 million per year. We can put these filters on here. We have it by paving group. I'm just going to go to one paving group. We can see how the paving group is performing and what treatments are going to be happening. Here are all the streets that are in that particular paving group. We can go through here and we can type in street names. So I think Rob is on here, and we'll go to Rob's road here. And so it was recently paved. So with the current budget, we can see that nothing is going to happen to Holtz Lane with the current budget. But if they do get funding to reach that goal of an 81, that work is going to be done in Holtz Lane in 2041. Is it exactly 2041? We don't know that far out, but it's kind of a placeholder. This is how much money we're going to need for that. We go back. What I think is really cool is that we can. I'm going to have to jump out of this and reset the go back to full screen. It's taking a little while here. But we're able to go and we can look at individual segments, the way things are performing, when things happen. So you can see we're going to be doing some work for this in the current budget. If we had more money, it'll actually do something else later on, and then do a rehab, and then it'll do some preservation prevent and some years out. So that's one view that I like to look at. I'm gonna have to reset the.
Hey, Steve, I think also we've been so we need to analyze our budgets too, and with the rising costs, things are obviously costing more, and money not going as far, but also need to be used maybe on other things. We um, been able to show kind of like, okay, well, if our budget goes down, not just goes up or maintains, what happens, and then what if we skip a year or something? What does that do?
Right.
So we've never had tools like that to show that.
So we're able to show the PCI score over years. And we're running out of time here. We got about 3 minutes. I'm just going to show you this real quick. And we got some pretty heavy rain right now, and the internet connection is going really slow. So I'm going to see if we can. There we go. So it's calculating a lot of stats here. So that's why it's taking a while, and also we're eating up some bandwidth being on the Wi-Fi.
Steve, I did get a question real quick. Another question.
Yeah, sure.
Floating.
That'd be great.
I got a question of if we do microsurfacing. We currently don't. We've analyzed it. We've looked at a couple. I think for me, we've been like well funded, so we've been able to do mill and fill, right? I think that's something we're going to have to look into more, especially if kind of our funding changes here and there. And I think you could put it in the model too, really, Steve. I think also for us, it was like, I know there's different products out there now, maybe, but when we looked at it, it was kind of a rough surface. We were kind of talking about how it'd be hard to pass the skateboard test here in Cary.
Yeah, that's it.
It's kind of rough and bounce, just rattly, whatever. Long story short, we don't, but we've definitely looked into it. We are looking at various products for that like fairly rated street to get us some more life. We've tried some that have worked here or there. We currently don't, but if there are any success stories out there, I would glad to take a look at it if y'all could let me know.
Hey, so real quick, this is just comparing the scenarios, current budget with a PCI goal. That's the overall network value right now, $308 million. When we're spending the way the current budget, we're losing $3.9 million per year. And when we're reaching that goal, we're actually increasing the network value by $1.4 million per year. So those are really good numbers to have. And this is something that's really cool. And I'm hoping that it comes up quickly, but it doesn't look
like. Well, that's powerful if you show someone in a decision-making, a policy-making position that even our current budget's not really enough.
And last point, this is your deferred cost. So you know that when things jump categories, it gets more expensive, right? So if we're comparing the current budget to this goal, and the difference between that is this deferred cost. And so when we look at year 2031, and if it comes back, come on. All right, so what it's showing here is that if we spend $3.76 million, we're gonna keep it from going to six, like we're deferring $6.76 million. So, and it's because we are keeping these roads right here from jumping different categories. So anyway, it's another way. So like, obviously it makes sense for us to spend this money so that we don't have this cumulative backlog building up on us. All right, so we are at the end of our presentation.
Can you show our contact info?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
There's our contact info. And so guys, I appreciate everybody showing up today. Amir, thank you for doing a great presentation. So January is going to be our next Lunch and Learn, last Wednesday of the month, and it's going to be on pressure pave, the next generation of roadway maintenance. Donaldson Construction Company is the company that's doing it, Brian Donaldson. So that'll be on January 29th at 11:30 a.m. And look forward to seeing you next year. Have a great holiday season, and thank you again. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Bye.